Alright, hello everyone, I'm Nate and welcome to the channel. Today I have something a little different for you. A couple weeks ago I reached out to, to you with some questions. So I wanted to create a video that was really geared towards new players. I've been getting a lot of questions from a lot of newer players lately of just kind of like, hey, what's some advice that you would have getting started or getting back into yo-yo? And so I thought, hey, let's throw this out there to the community. I know there's lots of sage advice out there, and people have been yo-yoing for a long time like myself, and from different perspectives, right? And so I wanted to kind of get your response. So there was a really decent response, so thank you if you've contributed to that. I may not cover all of them. Some of them kind of hit on the same topics. I will try to do a little shout out for you if I mention your comment, and we'll kind of go from there. So I'm just going to kind of start from the beginning. Let me get let me get my notes. All right. So first off, this one's from a newer player, right? So it kind of asks from other new, like if you are fairly new, what would you want to know? What's been helpful maybe for you, and then and so on. So this is from Mimic Moon. I just started to play yo-yo for a few weeks after watching your video introducing the OP yo-yo, so very, very shortly. In that one is the first time I was watching your yo-yo talks. The sound of the yo-yo is amazing. I totally sort of that deep way. Anyways, okay. Of course, also the smooth moves by you are chill and comfortable. For a very beginner inspired by you, I would also like to know how you practice and when you play during the day and so on. Yeah, I don't really practice really anymore. I think when I'm chasing maybe a trick, I spend a little bit more time with it. Perhaps the last time I kind of really was focusing on like one element that really I just had to get was probably beef hook. But really I kind of just play whenever. I always have a yo-yo on me. I would recommend that just kind of wherever. And it's a really, for me, it's been kind of a lot of somewhat of a stress reliever at times. Sort of a spin therapy maybe. You know, and so if I just gravitate towards that because I have it. So I would recommend always having one with you. I wouldn't feel like maybe practice is the right term, unless of course you're like maybe, I don't know, maybe you're actually ready to perform or compete somehow. Maybe you do need to practice that way. But anyways, so I don't personally practice, but I kind of, one thing I do try to do, if I have a new element or I have a new trick, I will repeat that over and over and over again. I probably, like before I film it, I probably have played that 100 times or more just to get it smooth and connected. I would say repetition, repetition, and pay attention to those little subtle sort of muscle memory movements. That's how I get smooth in my tricks. Like that's how I smooth out tricks, because they don't start that way, especially when I'm finding new things. They definitely don't start out that way. All right, let's go to the next comment. This is from Samuel Goodwin. It says, biggest thing for me is not to worry about what yo-yo is the best, because it mostly doesn't matter. Basically, no company these days makes a truly bad yo-yo. That's definitely true. If you've watched this channel long enough, I mean, there are yo-yos maybe I gravitate to because of preference. One of the things I kind of comment most often with is if a yo-yo doesn't really, if they have like a write-up on their yo-yo, and this was their intention, if it was supposed to play this way or feel this way on the string, and it didn't really perform that way, I feel like that's a misconnection. It may not make it a bad yo-yo, it just maybe make it misconnected or disconnected from their intent. So anyways, continue on. Especially if you're getting started. You don't have any preferences for a yo-yo to go against. That's true. I would pick something that's kind of comfortable in the hand though. I think that's crucial. Maybe something that's not extreme as far as width, diameter, all those kind of things, and shape. Something that's probably comfortable in the hand because you're going to play that a lot, and you might only have that yo-yo for a while until you get comfortable, or you really, it depends on how much your budget is too. So you really should just grab whatever looks cool. It doesn't cause you financial problems and so on. Yeah, absolutely. Spend whatever you can. Like, again, I think he's right. There are no bad yo-yos really out there. Well, maybe that's not completely true. There are some bad yo-yos maybe, but there are some really good yo-yos, and there's a lot of really good yo-yos. That makes sense. But I think there are some bad yo-yos, but usually if you spend, I don't know, maybe in the 50 range or so, you're probably not going to get a bad yo-yo at all. Let's move on. I've been using unresponsive yo-yos for about 6 years, so been playing for a while. This is from Dinosaur Monkey 6867. He says, learning to snap start the yo-yo to wind it up fast after a failed trick was really a pivotal moment that allowed me to start focus on whatever corrections I needed. Absolutely, it really cleaned up tricks and so on. So yeah, that could be very, very frustrating. I feel like it's one of those things right up there with, you know, kind of adjusting your string tension as well. If you kind of spend all day kind of messing around with that, that can be really frustrating if you're kind of winding it. So I have a yo-yo with me. Let me go ahead and show you what I'm talking about. So snap start. If you've never seen anybody do this, this is kind of what I'm talking about. So I'll just go with the dead yo-yo here. I have the Reaper here with Prestige strings. So this is a snap start. So basically what we're doing here is I have my middle finger and my thumb here. I'm grabbing one side of the yo-yo that's closest to my right hand here, and I'm just gonna kind of flick down, kind of like I'm snapping my thumbs here, and I'm just gonna give it a nice spin. You kind of give, it takes some practice, but that's the idea. You could also kind of do it like this, if I could do it. I used to do that whenever I was kind of throwing responsive, but I don't play it that way anymore. I just don't. This is kind of what I do. I think that's a really easy way to do that, to get really quickly a snap start up and good to go. All right, so and then as far as string tension, since I'm talking about that, there's a couple different ways that I do that. The most common one is to throw a sidewinder. So once you're comfortable with a bind, if you don't know how to bind, you really can't do this, but you can do this with responsive yo-yos as well. But as it comes up to a bind, you're kind of going to the right and so on. So if the sidewinder is going from right to left, it's loosening the tension. This one's a little bit trickier because you have to kind of open your hand up differently. If it's going from left to right, it's tightening. So that's probably the one I do the most common. I would definitely say that a snap start and string tension kind of tricks, to get those quickly done and kind of over with, I think are really good tricks to learn early on, just so, you know, you don't have to kind of worry about that and you can just move on to actually the tricks that you want to play. Okay, this next one's from Ed. I've chatted with you, Ed, a number of times. You're a good dude. He said this. I was in the same situation a couple years ago and I found out the unresponsive yo-yos were very frustrating at first. My suggestion for old school players that are getting back into it, that it would be to check out the semi-responsive yo-yos first. Just my 2 cents. So that would be like, One Drop has a couple of different ones of those, like the Deep State and that kind of thing. Squared YoYos has one as well. I don't know if, well, it's not really semi-responsive, it's more responsive, but modern responsive. But you could play it semi-responsive if you cleaned the bearing a little bit, maybe. Anyways, that's the respawn. So there's a number of them out there. So I think that's a good tip there. The next one is from Ben Corrington, yeah, 8768. Okay, just in case there's another Benjamin out there. He says this: I've been at this for about 3 years, so a decent amount of time, and this would have been so nice to hear. Yeah, that's kind of why I'm doing this video. He said, put the slip knot in the middle of your finger between the second and third knuckle and use the middle finger. So now, that's standard. That's typically where you're going to be. I wouldn't use any, there's that old school players, maybe like who played in the 90s. They used to sell that tape you could put around your finger, right? So that your finger wouldn't get calloused. Don't do that. Just get used to it. Your finger will get calloused eventually. Anyways, so if you've seen that, I don't know if it's still out there or not. It says it helps a lot with chopstick mounts later, and it would be used, and if you use the index by mistake, it'll also make it harder to learn tricks later. So yeah, I know there are some players who use their index finger though, and you know, I don't know. So, but that's the kind of general rule of thumb. And then he talks about lube as well, and lubing your bearings, small amount. That's a big thing. I actually don't use really lube in my bearings for unresponsive play. For responsive, yes. I typically use a thick lube just to make sure it's responsive as I want it to be. But unresponsive play, I don't mess with it usually. I kind of keep them dry. But if you are going to use a little bit of light, thin lube, right? Or thin lube rather, use a very, very, very small amount of it. Okay. All right. Let's move on to the next set of comments here. It says this is from Mark Jordan. He says, I've been playing since I thought the Henry's Viper was the best thing around. Dude, I was in 6th grade, oh man, I think it was 6th grade, and I saved all my pennies. I remember it was like about $55 or something like that from a local like kiosk in the center of the mall, in Clearview Mall, where I bought my first Henry's Viper. I had the purple shell wings on there. Oh man, it was so good. I love that yo-yo too. I said, anyways, instead of slavishly copying other people's tricks, that's a new word. Okay, instead of slavishly copying other people's tricks, I wish I'd been encouraged to play more freely, make my own moves, invent my own tricks. I think that's definitely true from older players. There was a lot of trick books and not really focus on how to play kind of just freestyle, right? And just kind of creating your own style. I think that's one of the things that kind of got me back into yo-yo. With unresponsive play, it really kind of opened up the door to like, okay, I'm trying to develop my own style, and that took a long time, but it does happen, and I think he's absolutely right. Picking some good music would be helpful, just to kind of like freestyle to that music. All right, Ryan King 2472 says, I kind of jumped from responsive cheap toy to professional bimetal, but they look so awesome, and yeah, I practice on carpet. Yeah, you can. I don't know if it's necessarily you get what you pay for. I feel like kind of going back to the other comments about kind of don't break the bank if you don't want to, but there's something to be said, at least for my personality, that if you put good money into it, you might actually like use it more. So it's up to you. It kind of depends on probably how much money you want to spend as well, but playing over carpet, I don't know. I used to. I feel like my first like few years back into yo-yo, I probably played over carpet, and every yo-yo was pristine. But I don't really care about that anymore. I used to not play with a wedding band either. I had like one of those silicone rings for a while. I don't really care anymore. I just don't. But that's my personal preference now. I just don't. All right, this next guy, the subtle amusement. He says, or she, I assume it's a he. I have been playing for about 3 months, so a new player again with my young kids. That's great. I think that's great. Have fun is what his advice is. Seriously, it should be enjoyable for beginners. If you're not having fun with a toy, why are you using it in the first place? The lack of stress also makes it easier to nail a trick. Yeah, calm down, right? Not everything's a race to get to the most difficult tricks possible. I know that's a kind of an easy trope as a beginner, all right? If you're like, I see all these tricks, I want to do all these things. That's any skill toy that I've experienced. Like, you just want to kind of jump the gun a little bit too much before you learn some of these basics. And so really get those basics down. And when I say basics, I mean like mounts and elements. Get those basic mounts, how to get into them, out of them, and how to do all those elements. And those will help create a style as well, and later combos. And a lot of that muscle memory will carry over into other things that are more challenging. So make sure you nail those early on. It says, buy good string. Absolutely. I have a bag of bulk string from ZipLine. Absolutely. The difference is noticeable. I 100% agree. I think I was playing just kind of some kiddie fat when I first got back into yo-yo, and when I started picking up some boutique string, that changed it as far as the feel in the hand for me. And so my prestige string from ZipLine, it's very much focused on that comfort, right? And just kind of like, it's out of the bag onto the yo-yo, first throw, feels comfortable, and it feels like it's already broken in. And so you tend to have a little bit more of that with boutique string, because there is a little bit more precision built into that. But all right, we're going to move on to the next one. Alain Vorlet, I don't know. These sometimes usernames are weird. All right, it says, knowing the way a trick feels is like 80% of learning a new trick. Yeah, absolutely. Like if you could almost like play that same trick with your eyes closed and you know sort of the muscle memory of it, you're absolutely right. I think that's huge. I talked about that earlier with like, if I find a new trick or I find a new element, I'm probably playing that like 100 times before I film it. Like I've gotten to that point where I just feel it. I think that's absolutely right. And also like remembering old tricks is one of those things too. I'll look back at tricks that like I filmed like 5 years ago and I'm like, I don't remember that. But after some time, because I played it so much, I feel it again and it kind of connects again. All right, I'm kind of relearning some tricks that I used to do. I do that all the time. That's why I film them practically. It's not just for you guys, but it's also for me to remember. But that's it. All right, moving on. Adbrotsky, I'm sorry. He says, I've been yo-yoing for about 11 years. Some younger me needed to hear desperately was to stop putting lube in my bearing as if it was a fix-all solution. Like I said, I don't put lube in my bearings like at all unless it's a responsive bearing. It's not, he says. And also to change my string frequently. Yes, I probably play way too long on a string. I think a lot of players do that, and they don't realize that it's like, oh, as soon as you change that string, it's like night and day, and you're like, oh my gosh, this is what I've been missing. You just have that bounce, right? Especially boutique string, right? You get that bounce back, and it just feels like it's like new tires on a car, you know? Moving on. All right, also buying a new yo-yo does not automatically make you better. Yes, absolutely. I don't know. I mean, I wish that back in the day when I was playing guitar, you know, that I could just spend money on a really good guitar and just be amazing right away. But that's not how it works, right? Doesn't work with yo-yo either. So advice for people in the yo-yo community: being nice and kind will take you far. Yes. I think by and large, we are a kind community, but every once in a while you see people who, I don't know, they've made it their life work to just kind of be a jerk. I don't know, you know, and honestly, those people, they don't deserve your attention. They do not speak for all of us. So if you've experienced that, new players, I am sorry for all of us. We are not like that. You go to a yo-yo contest, by and large, you will meet a lot of people that you've never met before, and all of a sudden, you have best friends, right? So I feel like he's absolutely right. Kindness does go a long way. Be generous. If somebody asks you, especially older players, if you've been playing for a while, somebody asks you for advice, take some time, you know, to give a feedback, you know, if they ask you, right? I know that all of us don't have this sort of like, you know, this channel kind of thing like I do, but I would recommend that, right? New players, don't be afraid to ask people. Don't be afraid to ask me for advice. That's kind of what we're doing this video about, right? All right. All right, we're going to move on to the next one, actually. All right, I know we got a lot to go through, and I just want to kind of make sure I cover the most of them. Throws and brews, he says this, oh, buddy, I have one thought. If you don't know Tom, he's a good dude. Wood is good. As an old guy who came back just wanting to play catch with himself, I seek out a good wooden yo-yo. Absolutely. Wood is good, man. Wood is good. I've been back for a while and learned and forgotten a bunch of unresponsive tricks, but not a week goes by where I don't spend a few hours with some good wooden yo-yo just having fun with the itch. When the itch hits, that's when and where my money goes. So there's just nothing like it. I absolutely agree. Yeah, there's some great wooden yo-yos out there. Timber Toys is one of those for sure. But yeah, there's some great stuff out there. And there's a lot of great little makers. And I feel like there's just a lot of, I don't know, there's a lot of like spirit and there's a lot of personality in wooden yo-yos that you can feel the maker's approach to it. So anyways, all right, moving on. Thanks, Tom. All right, so this is from another one from Alan Vorletz. He says, don't let people tell you not to play with other styles. Absolutely. I really don't mess around with too many other styles, but I think it does stretch you. And I've learned that from like Beglery as well, that like playing with other kind of similar skill toys like knuckle bones and things like that do make you a better Beglery player, whatever. I would say the same thing about yo-yo is that, you know, you maybe kind of try some 5A. You know, 5A May is a really good opportunity. We have Fixed Axle February coming up, which just kind of a hint here. We might have a contest coming up this year. All right. But those kind of things. So yeah, just give it a go. You know, it doesn't need to be your main style maybe, but it's a good thing to do. All right. And John Banfield, he says this: stress to beginners is to be patient and learn, practice mounts and binds before trying to go on to other tricks. Absolutely. Bind is like, if you've ever driven a standard, it's like feeling the clutch, right? It takes a while. You're going to have some screeching, but when you finally get it down, it becomes second nature, and a bind should be that way, right? You really shouldn't be getting into super advanced tricks, right, before you really get that bind down. solid, like, and it's clean when you throw it back out, right? Not just come back up to your hand, but like when you throw it back out to the next trick, it shouldn't be all like jammed up, right? And knotted and so on. And so that's a clean bind. All right, we're gonna move on to a couple others here. We're almost done here. Binds, 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 and how to bind, says Donald Laporte. Absolutely, like I said, learn those binds. Okay, Selly the Rosebud editing, completely unrelated, but what camera to use? Currently, I'm actually filming on the Sony A7 IV with a 35mm G Master 1.4 lens, and so I'm shooting in 4K 60 currently as well. Okay, so that's what I'm shooting with. Okay. All right, thank you for bearing with that. That was kind of fun, right? Hopefully we all learned something. Newer players, I hope that this was helpful enough. We've covered things like learning how to bind, get those tricks down, don't rush, don't be pressured by the masses, right? So just get those elements down, get those tricks down, those basics down, mounts, elements, getting in and out of mounts, getting clean binds, those kind of things. Don't break the bank maybe with the yo-yo of your first one. If you're a collector and you have a lot of money, hey, go for it. If you want to spend all your money on yo-yos, I don't think that's a horrible thing if you want to do that. But that's not going to necessarily make you a better yo-yoer. So that's kind of what this video was about, right? To make you more confident yo-yoer, moving on, you know. Okay. So anyways, I hope you found some enjoyment from that, new players and experienced players. Maybe this was a good refresher for you to be generous with your knowledge, right? So thank you so much for all those who contributed, both veterans and new players. And so that'll do it for now. And until the next one, later.